In this video, we're going to take a look at activity 3.1.3 basic inputs programming with VEX code V5 and the V5 testbed. In part 1, they want us to take a look at utilizing a bumper switch to be able to control a motor. So in this activity, we're going to be considering, and as they are given the example code, they want us to go ahead and utilize some of the inputs on our test bed to help us control some of the outputs. So we're going to build this code as we see it here on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up. This is from activity 3.1.2 part 4. What I'm going to go ahead and do, since I'm kind of working on these one after another, so I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go ahead and go to Save As, and notice I haven't touched any of the code, and I'm going to go ahead and go back up a level in my menu, create a new folder, activity 3.1.3, and inside of here on this file name I'm just going to change a couple of the numbers to activity 3.1.3 part 1 and hit save. So now that I've got a new part, I can now get rid of the broadcast and these other two sections of code that I wrote from the previous activity. So now all I have is my when started block to work from here. So now I can start looking at building the code that they provided to us, and that's all that part 1 is going to do, is show us how to build the code. So I'm going to go down to the control section, and in control I want to grab a wait until block and connect it to the event handler. Then I want to go to the sensing section, grab a bumper switch. So under bumper sensing, you're going to notice that this has a kind of shaded area where it has this kind of diamond shaped or pointed ends. So anything that has pointed ends, kind of like the bumper sensing, that is what will fit in there. Like if I try to grab a one that has rounded ends, I can't get it to work. So it should flash there when I go to connect it. So let me go ahead and grab until bumper C is pressed. Notice how it kind of highlights, and then it'll drop in and connect. So that's exactly kind of the contextual menus that VEX code has to help us kind of build some of our code. I'm going to go back up to action. We're going to grab our set motor velocity to 50%. We're going to use the left motor in this case. We want to spin the left motor forward. I'm going to go back down to control, grab a wait statement. We're going to change this to 5 seconds, and then we're going to grab a stop motor block from our motion section, and this will build our code that they have shown us here on part 1. And they want us to go ahead and download and observe the behaviors. So as I take a look at the code, I can download and I can hit run, and you're going to notice that your LED turns on. That's one thing I've always noticed with the VEX code V5 test bed, is the LED always turns on. If you don't want that to be on, we may need to throw in a turn LED off block in there. But nothing's really happening, and it's because we're waiting until the bump switch is pressed. So if I go over here and I press the bump switch, now my left motor turns for 5 seconds and turns off. And now if I try to press the bump switch again, nothing happens. So what I have to do is actually have to rerun the program. So I can go ahead and hit stop, and I can hit, if I have any changes I would have to hit download, but since it's the same program, I'm going to hit run again, and then I'm going to press the button. Again, it runs for 5 seconds and it stops. So that's exactly the point of this code, is that it is providing a wait until block in there, and now utilizing a bumper switch to control the motor rather than having the motor run automatically when we go ahead and download and start the program. So this one will go through and say to share and then save the code. So if you want to share, you'll click the share button, and here I would go ahead and in the 3.1.3 folder I would go ahead and save this PDF. Notice how it already has the file name for us, so I'll hit save. That'll generate a PDF file of the code, and then now that we're ready to move on to part 2, so there's nothing else we have to do with this part. Before I make any changes, I'm going to go up here to File, Save As. I'm going to go ahead and change this file name to part 2 and hit save. Once it has part 2 in there, because of that autosave feature, now I can get rid of this code, and now part 2 is going to already have the save. So if I was to close out of VEX code, open up part 2, it'll just have a blank. There would just be kind of a blank canvas, and we would only have the one event handler there on the screen. So check out the next video where we'll take a look at part 2 and look at modifying that code that we had created.